Holocaust Memorial Remembrance Day is the 27th of January. And we're busy at the moment in the Office of Father's House preparing for Holocaust memorials, speaking to the schools, speaking to the press. Becky's really busy doing things with regard to encouraging the press to do reports on Holocaust Memorial, etc. And we're trying to do all we can to encourage schools to come in to prepare for our Holocaust Memorial service, which will be at 7 o'clock on the 27th, which is a Sunday evening. And we're trying to encourage as many people as possible to come, because we really feel this is very important, particularly today. And I'm going to explain why. This week we found that an Arab cleric by the name of Mitri Raheb from Bethlehem is coming to speak at St. Daniel's Library in Harden. He's anti-Israel. He calls Israel an apartheid state, an occupying force, but he has a huge following, and Christians from all over the world ask him to speak to them, and he's supported by many organisations. He's the co-author as well of the Kairos document, which was an anti-Israel anti-Semitic document that was published a few years ago, which was accepted by a lot of churches here in the UK because it was so anti-Israel, and this man does influence a lot of people, and that's it concerns me that he's speaking in a theological library and making out that he's speaking the truth. Anyway, we've got some things in place to try and speak to the library, and we've got UK Lawyers for Israel behind us helping us with that, and Leslie Claff, who is a professor in law at Sheffield University, is trying to help us to approach St. Daniel's Library with a good argument to ask for this man not to be allowed to speak. But also I've had the reports by the NGO Monitor, which is a report on the World Council of Churches training camp for anti-Israel advocacy. And the report says that the World Council of Churches training program has already trained 1,800 volunteers to witness what the World Council of Churches says is life under occupation. And it runs programs throughout the world, in churches throughout the world, which again tells the story that Israel is an occupying force. Of course, that's not right. It's a lie, and it's something that has been promulgated through many churches, and has influenced many churches. And it's quite frightening, really, that such a large Christian organisation is repeating things of the past. Now, when we approach Holocaust Memorial, we think about many things, but we ask ourselves the question, how did that happen? How did ordinary human beings become killers? Well, it's the process of genocide. And there are 8 processes to genocide, 8 steps, if you like. And the first one is classification, and categories are formulated enabling a them and us view. Now, with regard to Holocaust, it was an us and them being the Jews, being a danger to society. And the church was also influenced people. It wasn't only the Nazis, the church actually influenced people to think in those terms. So if we look at it today, again, we see governments making out that Israel is them, a danger to society, but also we have churches, as I've just explained, saying that it's a them and us, and Israel is an occupying force, an apartheid state, and already the classification is taking place. Symbolism is the second process, and that classification is made up of a symbolism for a people group. Well, in this case, with regard to Israel, now they are using Nazi symbols to describe Israel. And that's the second step. Dehumanisation is the third, and already churches are dehumanising Jews, saying they are an occupying force and an apartheid state. Israel is a danger to the peace in the Middle East, etc. And then fourthly, there is this organisation step, this classification of organisation. And in Holocaust, it was clear that they organised camps, etc., to round up Jews and put them in. But if we look today, it's clear that the churches are organising their own people to teach them to be advocates against Israel. Organisation is already taking place, and this is my concern, that it's happening today. We never ever want this to happen again in our history, and we must do all we can to try and stop it. And I just want to encourage anybody at all to get on board and help us to do that. Help us to show the Jewish community, first of all, that we're standing with them. So if you can, or if you've got friends who are interested in Holocaust, bring them along on the 27th to our service, because we need to show solidarity with the Jewish people, and we need to be alongside them. We need to stand alongside the people of Israel as well, and just to show them that we haven't forgotten them, and actually we're not like other churches. We're quite different. We are advocates for Israel. We want to speak of love. We want to teach about the good things that are happening in Israel. The result, if we don't act and we allow other church movements, big churches, to either be apathetic or even to join the World Council of Churches and teach against Israel, then what could happen is that Israel could become isolated. Jews in this country could be violated even more than they are already. And when I look at the scriptures with regard to Holocaust, then I read Lamentations 1 and 2, and Ezekiel 7, 19, Ezekiel 11, 8 to 10. And I think about the awful suffering that the Jewish people went through during Holocaust. And those scriptures speak of that suffering. But one scripture speaks to me very clearly about God in Holocaust. And that is that God never left the Jewish people, never forsook them. He was there in the midst of all that terrible trauma and the murder and the violation of ordinary human beings. It was where the question should be, where was humanity? But God was there with them. And Zechariah 1, 7 to 8 speaks volumes about God's faithfulness in loving the Jewish people throughout their pain and suffering. It's the vision that Zechariah has in the night. He sees a man on a red horse surrounded by myrtle trees in the deep, and the man on the red horse is Messiah. The myrtle trees, as you know, is a symbol of Israel, and the deep is always a symbol of the nations. So it's the Jews in the nations being persecuted, but their Messiah, Yeshua, our God, is with them. And he's not forsaken them, he's not left them. He's seen what's going on. He's witnessed what's going on, ready for judgment for those people who have hurt and vilified the Jewish people. And it's the same today. God has not ignored the things that happen in the World Council of Churches. He doesn't ignore those things. He doesn't ignore what this Reverend Mitri Rehab says. He sees it all. He knows what's happening. And that these people will be judged. But also, I think it's important that we do the things that God has asked us to do, and that is to bless Israel and to be alongside them and support them in this period of our history when not only churches but governments are isolating them and and going through the process and the first steps towards a genocide. It sounds really serious what I'm saying, but actually we need to take it seriously. So would you first of all do all you can to join us for the Holocaust Memorial Service on the 27th? And if you want to stop inciting hatred, you want to stop those people who incite others to hate Israel, then come and see us and see if you can help us do what we do very well here at Father's House, and that's advocate for those people who have been in history the victims of terrible atrocities and today are being isolated in society. So thank you for listening. Shabbat Shalom, Mike Fryer.